And welcome back to those who were successful in returning to the journey again, and those unfortunate enough to not arrive. Then you will know partially of what's going on. This is less of Beyond the Veil and more Before the Curtain, a retelling of what has happened. The adventuring party had finished up important business in Havinto, and were getting ready to set out towards a southern pole of one of these other antiquities, most likely. The party spent the day or so gathering up extra supplies and anything necessary for their journey. Gadget proceeded to use some of his druidic abilities and created a portal to a section of forest that would more or less be close. The Symmetry Woods, some of you are quite familiar with, and fought dangerous ettercaps in order to free the forest for many fae and pixies who were being harmed. The party proceeded to travel outwards from the cave and cliff that looked over a large section of cleared forest. Gadget realized that he could use some magics in order to hasten the journey, creating fae spirits of dire wolves. The party traveled as long as they could and continued on foot afterwards. Eventually, with the falling sun, the party would have to rest. Duringir, removing some trees and using his own spells of Fabricate, created small, hut-like shacks, rustic little homes, capable of supporting a small fire and some doors. As the sun set and the moon rose, so did the wind, whipping around ice, sleet, and snow. Drexel, who was keeping watch first, managed to hear or perhaps sense something. Stepping out from the huts, stepping back just in time as a boulder almost crushed him, firing a shot in the direction where the boulder came from. Immediately after the shot, hearing the roar of a massive creature, the rest of the party managed to awaken from the impact of the boulder, the snap of the gun, and the roar of a beast. A flash of lightning then showed what was happening within the forest, as a large dragon was competing with some trees of some kind, as if they were swatting and attempting to slam the creature. Flapping of wings could be heard as it proceeded to fly, as if it was flying away, but eventually could barely be heard again, as the dragon came screeching down across the party and the trees. Noxious gas filled the air. Drexel was immediately downed. Yami and El were nearly bloodied. The rest of the party fared all right. Gadget seemed unfazed. Duringir proceeded to help Drexel back to his feet and consciousness, while he quickly ducked into a house. Yami and El ducked into the same one in order to hold the door. Gadget raced into the woods, tracking down the direction of the dragon and the sounds. Alabaster followed next alongside Duringir and Cyril. Duringir setting alight his axe and his light forward in front, casting shadows in front of him. As the four went forward, trees almost began to lean inwards to prevent path. Gadget proceeding with a powerful shoulder charge and breaking the branches. Alabaster proceeding to hide within the woods. Duringir chose to try and get closer as best as he could. Cyril attempted to bridge the distance even better, but unfortunately fell, sliding on his face rather than his feet, and eventually stood. As Gadget got closer, he called down lightning, striking the dragon, but he also struck a treant, as it was soon discovered as to what was combating with the beast. The treant then proceeded to show signs of being set ablaze by the lightning, and was proceeding to panic. That treant proceeded, unfortunately, to panic right over the top of Gadget and the two dwarves. Gadget was able to successfully avoid, however, Durengir and Cyril were trampled by a treant as it panicked into the woods. Another treant stepped forth and continued to fight the dragon. A third one stepped forth flanked by two animated trees in order to block the path, but simply warned, saying, "Run," in order to tell the adventurers, "This place is not safe, you must leave." The adventurers chose to listen, and accepted help from the treant. That lifted up both Durengir and Cyril into each hand and began running, proceeding in a northward curve. Durengir used sending to inform Yami of the new change in plan, while Yami, El, and Drexel were simply waiting. Drexel eventually stepped outside, and upon seeing a flying light, most likely of Durengir, assumed they were moving, and proceeded to sprint in that direction. Yami and El eventually flanked the rear, a little further behind from the rest of the party. While the party ran, Durengir and Cyril could look back, and with whatever faint light, could faintly see the dragon dig its claws and teeth into the treant, lift it several feet into the air, and shear it in half. With a mighty roar, it then flew up into the clouds. With the help of the treant, the party proceeded to sprint on pure adrenaline. Eventually, when coming to a rest, the treant used what power and sway it had over the trees to pull them close in a tight formation and lean inwards to form a canopy, even uprooting the ground to reveal the warm dirt and roots beneath. Conversating with the treant, the party learned of its name of Taint Talon. The party also learned that in the morning, faint lines of smoke could be seen in the distance of where the last green dragon could have been. Whispering through the plants, the treant informed that the green dragon was most likely no more, as it was claimed as a trophy, and it was the third dragon to be claimed. News of a silver shining star was also claimed by the Mad Fire and the Crimson Doom. The party then proceeded to prepare for north, but Gadget had an idea. By using some of his magics, he was able to view the actual lakes and saw the four. In the center lake, he saw a small island, and on that island he was able to faintly see a single tree, upon which, using that knowledge, created a portal to that island. The treant offered to be the doorway for this, to hasten the journey. The party arrived to a small island, still large, but rather small. Having a thin scarf-like set of beaches around it, the party climbed up, clambering over rocks, passing through only a few several feet of trees that surrounded the entire top, coming to an open clearing. And inside this clearing were the remains and remnants of a former building that in its heyday could have been a grand church or temple of some kind, having a faint having a faint cross intersection like building, with the windows shattered, the walls weathered, and majority of the roof and ceiling gone. Stepping into this cross intersection like a building, flagstone lined the floors, cobblestone across the walls. Looking through the area, the left and right hallways end in circular rooms with nothing much else to them. The northern hall, however, ends with a heavy wooden door, bolted and riveted shut. Checking the door, there's a weight on the other side. It's clearly barred. The party investigates the area, seeing strange humanoid shapes carved into the molding along the floor of the walls. These different shapes are somewhat confusing, hard to discern. Drexel proceeds to walk around the area of the entire building outside and finds a broken wall. This wall he's able to climb through puts him in the room on the other side of the door. Stepping into this room, he sees that it is a circular, octagonal-shaped room with a red, muted, and muddy-looking crimson carpet of some kind that stretches from the door to nearly the center and beyond the other room. This room also had what looked like to be old pews that had been broken and rotted away. At the end of the line of where the pews would have stopped, there's about a 5-foot space. On the other side of that 5-foot space, of a walk path from the looks of it, is a stage-like altar of some kind, having small, curved inward steps that rise to a different level that also meet another set of steps that rise and eventually level out, as they eventually pull forward to take the shape of a small altar or stage of some kind. There, at the end of the stage, is what looks like to be a iron rod embedded there. Most likely a pedestal of some kind used to hold ancient tomes or readings of some kind, ancient scripts maybe. The pedestal is gone, and all that remains is the foot of what that would have been. Drexel eventually opens the door by removing the wooden block. But in doing so, it eventually snaps under its own weight and is far rotted away. The party enters and begins investigating this room. Through some deduction and curiosity, lifting this rotted away rug, this carpet, and revealing a 3-foot circular shape beneath it. Similar to a sewer cover, about 3 foot wide, and having a curve across the top, this elevated platform of some kind. This circular shape also has about 1.5 inches thick trim around the outside, segmented in different yet equal parts around it. The internal 3-foot cover is intricately carved, with no specific patterns of how it is. The incisions that are discovered on the more northern part of the curve that is closest to the stage simply says not all paths can be seen. Other tests are done to try and solve this puzzle. Durngir eventually reveals the other half of the puzzle as he attempts to lift this lid or cover or stone of some kind, eventually scrapes away stone and debris that was hiding the other portion of the message, or perhaps a secret to uncover the message. The second half said red can be an unsightly color. The party proceeded a few more tests, removing the carpet entirely, shutting the door. Nothing seemed to be working. Drexel came up with a clever idea. Stepping forth, he cut his hand on a knife and dropped some blood across the top. A few drips and nothing seems to happen, but eventually, the grinding of stone and turning of plates magically seems to happen. He lets off a final quip, a cocky quote, as the stones twist and turn, the flagstone pulls up upon itself, and revealing a massive spiral staircase that goes down, descending into the dark. As Drexel finishes his cocky quirk, the party then sees his entire body and everything upon him takes a gray, cracked and muted tone covered in moss, as he is completely turned to stone. Quick notice and observations upon this new form of Drexel sees that there's a small thin incision, only a few inches wide, within the chest. Not sure what could have caused it. It almost seems like a cut or a stab wound, almost. Another observation that was noticed was that, despite the highly detailed expression and the form of Drexel, his eyes are completely eroded away. Durger attempts to contact Drexel with Ascending. Drexel is able to hear the message, but he's not able to respond. The space he finds himself in is dark and yet almost foggy. He can partially move around, but he feels as if he's confined in a dark space, having only limited movement. The party then proceeds to travel downwards through the spiral staircase, and eventually coming into a large space. The party enters a large chamber equal to that of a grand hall of royalty or righteousness. Within this hall, there are several flower beds growing beyond reasoning. Even small benches line these flower beds and the space, with what looks like parchment left upon them, some disturbed, some not. Within the center of all of that is a fountain, showing elegant water flowing through it. At the end of this long hall is a statue of a beautiful, thin maiden, the statue itself easily 15 feet or more. But she is bent, simply bowing, covering her mouth. Adorning the top of her head is a diadem. Upon this diadem, this crown-like carving. Upon it is an inscription saying, "A token of love and friendship shall charm thee and thy heart." The party still shaken and aghast at what had happened, and find themselves in a new chapter of their journey. This was a simple retelling before the curtain, talking about recent events that previously happened. Due to the late hour of these tellings of stories, some details can be forgotten, and some are completely unknown of what happened. This is to simply act as a helpful guide to not only refresh the memories of those who were there, but refresh the knowledge of those who weren't there. So, that is what these stories will be. And, hopefully, all of you and many more will be able to follow along in this journey, and enjoy it together of its highs and lows. in the Tales of Fate.